Hey guys, I'm here with Joan at the National Association, I couldn't say that this morning, of Visual Arts, also called NAVA in Sydney. Thanks for having us here.
Pleasure.
The first question I guess I'll ask you is, what is NAVA and what is its role in Australia?
Sure. So NAVA is the national peak body for the visual media arts, craft and design sector in Australia. So what that means in terms of our role is that we advocate to all levels of government for artists' rights and the financial stability of the sector. We also set the best practice standards for the sector in Australia, and we also provide a number of services to our membership body. I think the best thing that NAVA can do for kids is really kind of, if they're looking into getting into the arts, we can kind of take that through with them and map out some processes in terms of education and getting their work out there.
Right, okay, cool. So what sort of resources do you have available and programs set up?
We do have online courses available.
Okay.
And so that kind of takes people through kind of business basics, also marketing tips, and also building a basic website, which is really handy these days for a practicing artist.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about social media and websites and things.
Yeah,
is that
totally.
really important for artists to have?
Totally. I mean, now information is moving as faster than it has before. So I think for a lot of emerging artists, getting an online presence should be their first port of call, whether that be a simple Facebook page, building a simple website, or even a blog. That's a great way for people to get back to your practice and learn about what you're about.
Yeah, and do people in the industry look out for new artist blogs and things? Like, is there scouts in the arts industry?
Well, I mean, if you consider like the artist-run initiatives, so they're spaces that are usually run by young artists, and writers and curators are always looking at what they're doing, and so having a website that artists, curators and writers can then go back and look at, that's a great resource for your career.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess, so if somebody's running a festival, they can find you. And is there any way, like in the music industry, they were talking about hashtags and tagging your work with specific words. Is that big in the arts world as well?
Yeah, you'll see that more and more often with accounts like with Twitter and even Instagram, so which is a really rich, image-rich social media platform where they can use their own hashtags, and then people, if they're at a show, they can hashtag that person.
What are the big awards or competitions, festivals and things that young and emerging artists aim towards?
You've got the big ones like, the international biennales at Venice, Sydney, so they're really big events. And then you've got kind of the more local base, so like Art Month or Sydney Festival. You'll have even like Art Month, like art trails within your councils.
What's that?
They're events where you'll have an organised studio trail. So there'll be a program of studios that people can visit. That's a great way to figure out what's kind of happening in your local area, and they're usually organised through the councils.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere we could find out about those on the NAVA website?
Yeah. On our notice board, which is a rich resource for what's happening, and also your local council will have information about art trails. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what about any awards and things? Is there any sort of awards that are really prestigious?
Usually there's the big portrait awards. So they're like the Archibald or the Doug Moran Prize. They've certainly become markers for artist success, but I don't think they're the be-all and end-all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And how else, apart from social media, should artists be trying to promote their work and get themselves out there? Or is it just really social media based nowadays?
I think it's a combination of two things. One is, obviously you've got your online community through your social media, but then you'll also have your direct community, so your peers, your colleagues that you may exhibit with or that you may create your own projects with. And so if you've got a really broad community base, they're really important in promoting your work.
Yeah, cool. And it seems like there's quite a bit of funding available somewhere for lots of different arts projects. If you have a good idea, you can apply for funding. Where can we find things like grants and...
Through NAVA. We've got a rich resource of awards, grants around Australia. There's also kind of your bigger, more federal or state-based funding bodies like Arts New South Wales, Australia Council or Arts Vic in Melbourne. So they're also great in terms of funding opportunities for the arts.
Yeah, awesome. Before artists in Australia go overseas, do you have to sort of crack it in Australia first? Or can you just go, you know what, I just want to go and move to Paris and be an artist over there?
Not necessarily. I think the way communication is occurring these days, you know, artists can go over and do residency programs overseas in like Paris, New York or Toronto.
What's a residency?
A residency is when an artist will take up a space in, you know, a local community, and then they're either funded or the artists fund them themselves. So they spend a period of time there where they work on a project or their specific practice, and then sometimes, each is quite different, so depending on that you may have an exhibition at the end of it.
Is NAVA somewhere where you would go to find out about that sort of thing as well? Or
yeah, we certainly have quite a comprehensive listing of international residencies. Also, another resource for that is ResRT and also TransRT.
How has technology changed the way that art is created and you think will be created in the future?
I think now with such diverse technologies, artists have access to they have an ability to multifaceted their practice, so they can actually do so much more than they have in the past. And also with the advent of smartphones and tablets, they're so interconnection with everyone.
How do you define visual arts?
I mean, people would argue differently than myself, but I think it inevitably comes down to the intent, and then how that intent to make an object and what ideas are behind that object, how that then communicates to an audience or a viewer, or someone who is interacting with a piece of work.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, can you just make a piece of artwork just because you go, oh, that's going to look beautiful? Or, you know, does there need to be a meaning behind the art?
It depends on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah.
Or why you're making it.
Why are you making it? The reason I got involved in the arts is because I liked talking with people and I liked photographing people.
Oh, okay.
So that's, from an early childhood, that's where my interest in the arts has stemmed from.
Yeah.
But everyone's different.
If kids at school have been really enjoying their art class and want to get out into the broader arts community, how can they begin to network and meet other artists?
For high school students, a great way is through some art school programs that are designed for senior high school students. So it's a program that is done in conjunction with their visual arts subjects.
Okay.
So usually that happens in year 11 or year 12, and it happens in the holiday period.
Right.
So through that, they'll be in that kind of art school environment, and they'll be being taught by professional artists.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty great opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, because I was going to ask about like the other training that you can get outside of school. Like, what is available? Is it?
A lot of community centres will run courses for both primary school kids and high school kids. Yeah, I think the best way for primary school kids would be to start researching with their parents a number of courses that are run out of community centres. And the best place to find that out would be through your local council.
Cool. Do you have any advice for maybe creating bios or pitching your work?
Pitching your work. The development of a portfolio would be really important.
Okay, great. What do you expect from a portfolio?
Say if you're applying for an art school, what they would expect to see from a portfolio is quite a wide style of work, perhaps. I mean, that's at least what happened with me. So I had quite a lot of drawing, photography, painting, also kind of works of porcelain and pottery. But then once you start, if you do end up going to art school and then you start to kind of specialise, you might want to start honing your portfolio and also seeking the advice of like a lecturer or a mentor or fellow students just to see that it is nice and cohesive.
Right. And should that include like a photo of you, a bio, and then all the best parts of the different work as well?
You would have like in your professional kind of administration, you would have like your artist statement and
an artist statement.
Yeah.
And what does that entail? Just where you come from, where you grew up?
No, not necessarily. That can kind of be reserved to your CV. So your artist statement will look at your main form of practice,
right,
and any main sort of how you go about approaching your work.
Right. And how would you describe like approaches to work?
I suppose that has to come directly from the artist. So the way I do it is I just kind of start talking about what I do, and then I just note that down, because you want it to sound like it's coming from the heart and it's coming from you, so it's not doesn't sound like someone else has written it for you.
Yeah, sure. That's funny because bios for authors are supposed to sound like somebody else has written them, so you have to write them in the third person.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that emerging artists are facing at the moment?
From what we hear from our members, a lot of it is funding.
Okay.
And it is space. So it's the practicalities of how they can sustain their practice. Yeah, they're the main two.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And do you have any advice that you'd like to give to kids that are feeling like, I can't do art as a career because it's not a real job?
Well, you can.
Okay.
It is a tough road, and as well as being talented, determined and adaptive, but there are so many opportunities out there. I think that's what's great about the visual arts, the craft and design sector these days, is that there is so many different sectors that you can get involved through. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's fashion design.
There's web design.
Yeah.
Lighting design.
Right.
I got into the arts because I wanted to be a set designer.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing that, or you went down another path?
I fell in love with photography and I just kept going.
Oh, anyway, well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Bye.